Hey guys, welcome back to another Was It Woke video. So today I'm going to be covering the recent Star Wars series on Disney Plus, Ahsoka. As per usual, I'm going to be running it through my 5 criteria, starting with racial diversity, LGBTQ representation, toxic masculinity / feminist messaging, traditions bad, progressivism good, and anti-capitalism / pro-socialism. For those who are unfamiliar, I take these 5 criteria, give them each a score from 1 to 10. I take the totals of those 5 scores and then I divide them by 5, and whatever the score is, I place it on my scale ranging from not woke to a little woke to pretty woke to very woke. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting off, we have 1, racial diversity. So with this show, it definitely had a diverse cast, there's no doubt about it. I wouldn't say it was as in your face as some other properties it might be, but this has definitely been a consistent thing with all Disney products, I should say, of late, with Star Wars, Marvel, all of them. They are just filling all of their scenes with just as many different races, multicultures as possible. And that was definitely still the case here with Ahsoka. You could see in every scene, it felt like it was almost like one of those stock photos that you see that just shows like diversity, and it seems forced, and it is forced. Like, let's be very clear about this. This is a forced agenda on their part. They have rules in place that ensure that there's certain amounts of diversity are included throughout all their productions, and so Ahsoka is no exception to that. And so definitely a lot of racial diversity here at play. But as I said, it wasn't forced. It didn't feel forced. Didn't feel like they were trying to shove an agenda down our throat, at least when it comes to race. But it is pretty clear that they have a dogma, basically, which dictates that they must have a variety of races in their show. And so for that, I'm going to give, for racial diversity, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Number 2 is LGBTQ representation. So straight up, there is none in this show, at least not evidently or clearly speaking, but there are subtle hints here and there. Not hints as in they're actually going to go this certain way, but it's more like they're kind of just dropping these little Easter eggs in there for fans to have fun with. And you could say that a lot of this is driven by fans just creating their own crazy ideas, like between Ahsoka and Sabine, or different characters, whatever they may be, just suggesting that one of them or both of them might be gay, lesbian, or whatever. But that's mainly on the fans' part, but you could attribute a little bit of that to the writers kind of trying to hedge their bets, knowing that, okay, we don't have any LGBTQ in this show, but we want to still feel like we're pandering a little bit to that group. And so I'm going to give a 2 out of 10 for LGBTQ representation. Number 3 is toxic masculinity / feminist messaging. So this was the big one for me in terms of what I was expecting the show and what it delivered. This show is filled with girl bosses, starting at the very top, obviously with Ahsoka, but then you have Hera, Sabine, Shin, even Mon Mothma, on the count of all these characters throughout who are just these badass females that are just completely flawless, have no flaws. They're always, coming out on top one way or another. And that said, no problem really with making strong female characters. The problem is, and this is what they do every time, is what they do to the male characters, is that they either make them evil or incompetent. That is just how it is. And you can see that, like, obviously Baylan Skoll being the main male character of the show, he's obviously a bad guy, more or less, but he was the most intriguing one. And then you have Ezra, who, when he was finally introduced, was pretty incompetent and pretty like beta in terms of his energy. He wasn't putting his front foot forward or trying to take the lead or using his Jedi skills. He's very much deferring to the women around him. And even Thrawn, I felt like, was not very assertive. He should have been the most assertive male character in the show, and even then he felt a bit kind of timid and just kind of played softly rather than showing him as this badass villain. So yeah, look, it has all the similar traits and issues that you find with a lot of modern day Disney shows that I find. Girl bosses everywhere, and all the guys are either evil or incompetent. And so yeah, look, and I look at scenarios like, for example, with Hera's character, when she's talking to the council and she's trying to get their permission for reinforcements and whatnot, and the way she talks to that male senator guy, yes, he's a douche, and yes, he's an idiot, but they really go out of their way to highlight that she was specifically like disobeying his orders, not the whole council's orders, even though they not unanimously, but they voted to not give her reinforcements, and then she singles him out as if he was the one who did it all and she disobeyed him. There's like little moments like that throughout the show where it's kind of unnecessary, but they do it anyways. And so, yeah, it's pretty disappointing, but it's not a surprise at all at this point. And so, yeah, I'm going to have to give a 9 out of 10 for toxic masculinity and feminist messaging. Number 4 is traditions bad, progressivism good. So this one's a bit of an unusual one because I would say they do respect some of the history of Star Wars in the show, namely their respect for Anakin Skywalker and like keeping him the cool character that we know and love in the way that they presented him, giving him that love and grace that he deserves. They didn't diminish him in any way. But that said, they did still pick and choose what they want to honor with the Star Wars history. And namely with that, the likes of like Sabine becoming a Jedi now completely, and the whole premise around that, basically essentially saying that anyone can be a Jedi. Like this changes all the rules of what has always been taught about the Force and Jedis and whatnot. It's not just something that everyone has within them. It's something that you're either born with or you don't. And they've changed it here. It wasn't the first time it's been changed. This goes back to basically the Last Jedi days. But nonetheless, sticking with Ahsoka, they've changed it here and they've made it even broader again, where Sabine is trying, and then she finally, unlocks her Force capabilities at the perfect moment to save herself and Ezra. But yeah, look, it's just this whole ideology that we have these days of of giving awards for participation. Everyone can be a Jedi now. We can all be happy together. And as I've said this before many times, if everyone is special, then no one is special. And that is what we have now. Jedis are no longer special because anyone and everyone can be them. And so I consider this a lack of disrespect for the tradition of being a Jedi and the Force and whatnot. Not so much as a disrespect within the characters of the show, but more so of a disrespect from the writers and the creators, like externally to the show, of how they decided to go about this. And so, yeah, look, to me, it's disrespecting the traditions of what is of Star Wars, really, of what it used to be. And so for this criteria, I have to give out 5 out of 10 for traditions bad, progressivism good. The 5th and final criteria is anti-capitalism / pro-socialism. Straight up, there is no reference to either one really in the show whatsoever. There's no pro-socialism or anti-socialism or pro-capitalism, anti-capitalism, whatever you want to call it. None of that really mentioned throughout. It doesn't really have any part in the show of anything to do with it. And so, yeah, I'm just going to be completely fair on that one, and I'll give a 0 out of 10 for anti-capitalism / pro-socialism. So when you total the scores of those 5 criteria, you come to 23. You take that 23 and you divide it by the 5 criteria, and that equals 4.6, which equals a little woke. Whilst this falls within the a little woke category, I have to say it is very much knocking on the door of being pretty woke. Anything over 5 would have pushed it into that range. But have to be fair, this is what it is. It's at as I think this puts it accurately, it's at the high end of being a little woke. It's not really overtly woke throughout the show. It has its moments where it pops up here and there, but just not quite enough to consider it like pretty woke. It's just not quite there. It's almost there, but not quite. So in terms of where that stands for your viewership, if you're interested in watching it or not, there is woke elements to the show, 100%, no avoiding them. Are they as egregious as some of the other likes of previous properties I've looked at, such as like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, or Barbie, well, you name it? Not quite. It's not in those realms, but it is still. It's got its elements of wokeness, and so take that as you will, do with that as you will. And it's like, I can say it's still safe for viewership. It's pretty G-rated, like most Disney things, but there's nothing sexual or anything like that going on that you need to worry about. It's just, if you're more so worried about these kind of subtle messaging that they're doing about, particularly when it comes to feminism versus masculinity and all these sorts of areas. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts on it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Was It Woke video. Please put your thoughts in the comment section below. If you thought it was just as woke as I did, or if you thought it was more or less, whatever it is, give it a like if you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.